everybody in corrections and penology. It's Dr. Masnick. I just wanted to give you a little bit of personal supplementing of the Module 2 material. It's pretty self-explanatory. This module I really like because the presentations, everything you have makes it very self-explanatory. However, I like to talk and get to interact with you. And since we are not able to do that, this is my way of doing it. I also decided get over the fact that I look like a lobster. Norwegian ethnicity and learning how to boat and fish. This is what you get. Tomorrow I'll be white like an Eskimo again. So, um, what I wanted to really talk about was that one of the presentations actually talks about overcrowding in our jails and our prisons. And that can be a little misrepresented or misunderstood because do we have prisons and jails that have too many people in them, meaning they are literally over capacity? If they're meant to hold 100, do we have 120? Yes, there are many that have that situation. However, they also call it overcrowding when there are too many people in a particular unit. And there might also be a unit in that same facility that might only have one person in it, but it can hold 20. Let me give you an example of that. This is where I say it can be very misleading if you don't know what the true statistics are. And a lot of researchers, a lot of people will skew information for their own purpose. And that's why the big thing is I want you guys to always ask why, why. I don't care who it is, me, your parents, this, that. They need to have true, legitimate data, research, or whatever to back up whatever it is. Whether it's, does Santa exist? And they say yes. Well, they better have a good way to explain to you Santa exists. We're voting for this person for president. Why? They say they've done XYZ. Now, have you really gone back and checked to see what XYZ is? Is it what you thought it was? Did they truly measure it completely? And you're going to find out that everybody lies. But it's actually the truth because if you read the little teeny tiny fine print, it'll explain what they're like. If one of the things I can tell you right now, if you want to just see what it is that I'm talking about, is go and look up Republican or conservative numbers for unemployment and go look up Democratic or liberal numbers for unemployment. And what you will see is they're going to give you polar opposite information, but they're both telling the truth if you know how they're measuring unemployment. Okay? So, or you could both say they're lying because they're skewing and cherry picking the information that they want, which is allowed because it's your responsibility to actually look up and make sure that you understand what it is you're reading. If you believe everything you hear and never check it out, then that's on you and you or me or whomever because we just believed somebody and we didn't look into it further. We're almost all guilty of that, okay? When we get into further classes, especially when you get into methods of research, that's one of my biggest things is I'm going to push you to question everybody. Even, I don't care if it's me standing up there in front of the class and I say, this is a fact, question me on it. You guys just take it for granted. I did when I was in college that my professor knew what the heck he was talking about. He's a professor. They pay him to be smart, to know what he's doing, what he's talking about. Well, my professor is was one of my bosses, not here at IRSC, and he is one of my friends. He's an absolute lunatic. So, had I met him first, I most definitely would have questioned everything. He'd have hated me in class. I'd have questioned everything he ever said. But predominantly, his information was accurate. However, I didn't necessarily agree with him once I went and looked up some explanations a little further. So, why did I go off this topic? See, I'm trying to keep myself on track by using my phone. This overcrowding, I'm going to use the example of Martin County several years ago. I took a bunch of students on tour of the Martin County Jail, and it had been posted in the press that Martin County was overcrowded and that we were going to need to build a new facility and this, a bunch of stuff like that. In reality, when we were there, we got to see it firsthand so we could validate it with our own eyes that the jail was not overcrowded. The jail is meant to hold adults. And on the day that we went to visit, there was one juvenile male and one juvenile female there. Now, Martin County, I believe, has two male pods and two female pods. You are not legally allowed to mix juveniles and adults. So that pod, let's say the male pod that's supposed to hold 20 inmates, had to be cleared out of all adult offenders or suspects and all moved into the other pod. And that juvenile male had a pod to himself. So, do you really consider it that it's overcrowding? That one pod, absolutely. However, the jail was not overcrowded. So, do you really want to put more money out in taxes, this, that, or whatever for overcrowding? Or do you want to try and look and see if there's an alternative of what we do with these juveniles that are causing some of these situations? So that's just an example of how the terminology can be different. They turn around and talk about it says overcrowding occurs when the number of inmates exceeds physical capacity available. I like that, but it's a little generic because it doesn't say physical capacity of what. So I break it down and say unit, pod, whatever it happens to be that facility calls their different sections. Okay. If the actual facility itself is over capacity, that's a different story. Okay. Then we need to look into it and look into it a little deeper. But this is where they say capacity is misleading. Yes, this pod is over capacity, but this juvenile kid, he's got half a hotel to himself, basically. Okay, so I don't consider that overcrowding. Okay. Uh, by having that issue, it limits the mission of whatever the jail is, whether it's rehabilitation, putting things through faster. Um, we can't, there are programs you can get your GED in there. You will not in jail get a college education or the opportunity because jail is meant for you to be there a year or less. College is not meant to get your degree in a year. So realize that you're only going to get your high school education in the jail. But if it's overcrowded, the student to teacher ratio is going to be way off. And then also, you're dealing with a population that might not be so conducive to be in the classroom for learning. They just may want out of their cells or their pod. So, the effectiveness of the program can also be lessened by having more people there than they're able to deal with or to properly instruct whatever the concept is, even if it's a reentry program and it's training them in whatever. If I have too many people, it's not going to give them the best job. You've been in classes where you're a number, you're one of 30, 40, 50. It depends on your learning style. I could not handle that. So I never went to a school with big numbers like that. I wanted them to know my name so that I could go up to them and say, yo, explain this to me. If any of you know Mr. Pacheco, you can ask him what my favorite question is, and he hates it, but I am the why girl. Okay. If you listen to the podcast that we do, I'm always like, why? 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 Why would somebody kill somebody like this? I have to understand. So, just realize that things can be not given their best simply because it may be trying to put too much capacity of inmates into the program. Or you're going to cause issues and fights with people who can't be in the program because it only holds so many. I have that issue. It doesn't cause fights, but it does cause stress and some drama and trauma on occasion. But in your very last class is methods of research. Online methods, I prefer 15, but I that class is it's academic. It's academic. So 30 or more is fine. The face-to-face class only holds 15. And the reason for that capacity number is because I actually am working cold cases with local agencies and using that to coincide with your research. So instead of the regular discussion questions, you're going to have different types of assignments. You're literally going to be working a cold case. Okay. So realize that. And if you need to take that class, take it face to face because it's the coolest thing ever. And B, get in there quick because that class fills up quick. I usually will take an extra one or two, but I really can't take that many because we have a private room and too many fingers in the pot makes it very hard to solve a case. And we have just solved our first one. So now that I've gone off topic a bit, let's go back to why jails might be so full. And your presentation talks about the fact that we end up with a lot of homeless people and a lot of mentally ill people in those facilities. Well, think about it. People that are homeless have a tendency to scare people, or they live in neighborhoods where they don't want to see homelessness, bury our heads in the sand, or we paid $1 million for this house, we shouldn't have to see this. So automatically they will pick up the phone and call 911 and law enforcement has to deal with them. So whether that means relocating them to another neighborhood facility or a homeless shelter, or if they get belligerent because they are intoxicated of some substance or arguing about being moved, then they end up getting arrested because they're not following orders by a law enforcement officer. Now, are they committing a horrific crime? No. So we're ending up putting people in jail for situations or for minor things. Doesn't mean that that being homeless does not cause other issues, robberies, burglaries, assaults, things like that. It sometimes does lead down a really bad path that we need to incarcerate those individuals. But just sleeping on a park bench, you know, that's taking up jail space. So is that what we really want to do? The other one would be people that are mentally ill. And you have to think about this. Not fair to put somebody in jail because they have a situation that they biologically did not ask for. Maybe it's an actual something that's hereditary. It was not caused by an overuse of drugs or alcohol, so it was not self-inflicted, but their behavior will draw attention to them, and it's usually unwanted attention. They're either talking to themselves. They are walking and randomly back up and down the same sidewalk, so people are wondering if they're going to break in, to a store. They may go up to individuals and just start to speak to them. And that scares people because most people aren't trained. They don't know what to expect and they don't know how to deal with the individual. So, what's the fastest and easiest thing to do? Call 911. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, because if you are concerned and feel fearful and there are children around, that's an absolute understandable situation. A lot of the times they are taken to the hospital for a psych eval for 72 hours and then released. But if they become, again, if they become belligerent, or the law enforcement officer is concerned about what they're saying and that they might be a danger to themselves and others, they're going to go to jail. Again, leading to potential overcrowding, because we're putting somebody in there for a health issue instead of a criminal issue. It may lead to that, but the actual crux, the actual beginning of the situation and the encounter is their physical health and their behavior. Okay? So realize that's where all these, when we use the word overcrowding, you need to be very careful when you explain it, because sometimes we're crowded because we don't know what else to do. Here in Florida, we don't have state institutional facilities to take people to for mental health reasons, or we don't even have a lot of homeless shelters. I give Christmas gifts, and you'll see, because I'll be asking, it's a big thing with the students, that we give gifts to all of the homeless shelters and domestic abuse shelters in all 4 counties. I did not leave men out on purpose. I have actually looked and looked and looked. I have finally found 2 shelters that are for men only or for family, and that's in 4 counties. So again, realize if we don't have someplace else to take them or put them, and we are concerned, then unfortunately they're going to go to jail. Uh, I am a public defense investigator, and I can tell you it was really sad that I had a frequent flyer, and I actually really adored the guy. Older gentleman, pretty sure he was well into Alzheimer's. Not my place to, nor my ability to actually diagnose him. But having worked in one of those facilities and having a family member that had it, pretty good guess. So I treated him in that manner. But he had stolen something from a local store, and they had him trespassed. Goes to jail for 30 days. Not getting any mental or physical health benefits while he's in there. No family, so there's no place to send him or make sure that he's safe when his 30 days are up. So when we let him out after 30 days, he has Alzheimer's. What's he do? He goes back to that same store that he knows to get his food or this or that, because he doesn't remember what happened. It might also be that he thought he paid for the item when he walked out the door, but didn't remember that he hadn't. So, what happens to him? I see him in jail all the time, and he gets 30 days. There's no place else and nobody else to give him to. Right? Wrong? It's just what it is. Okay? That would be something I would love for one of you to tackle in your future career. Huge part of the penal system that there's a problem, and it needs to be looked at, studied, and somehow resolved, even if it's just a tiny piece of it. That is something you guys can make a career out of. Let's see. One of your assignments actually deals with the things that inmates go through once they go to prison. And I can tell you, I'd never survive. Okay? I go to prisons all the time. I go there and I'm interviewing. I have no problem being locked up in a small room with an inmate. All right? And I interview some pretty scary people. But I have earned and been given respect, and I also know that I can walk out the door, okay? At any point in time, I just call it and I'm done. If I had to stay in a facility, I would be pro death penalty 155%. Just do me in because there's no way, and I'm not meaning that to be funny, um, because if you look at some of these things that they go through, I know I couldn't handle them. Prison, I have taken students to jails for visit, and when they heard those first doors that we went through with that big clang and close of a king door, the gentleman freaked out and immediately came up to me and said, Dr. M, I can't do this. I cannot go. We hadn't even made it into the jail yet. It was between the lobby and the jail. So it was in like this, the room that they check to make sure that you don't have any weapons and things like that on you. That was enough to scare that individual and make him change his mind about his career. So you want to try lots of experiences. I can tell you, love to visit and study and research people in prisons and situations of prisons, but I'm never going to cross the line where I end up in one because it isn't going to work. So the first thing they go through is mortification. Okay. And this is where it's a totally debilitating feeling. And that's what I know. I would probably get to that point and be stuck. So what do? You have nobody you know. You have no family, no friends. You have nothing. You have somebody telling you when to get up, when to go to bed, when to eat, when you can go outside, when you can brush your everything is dictated. Okay. So some people thrive, and I do know individuals who have gone back to, they have become gone through prisonization where they actually function better there. They don't do well when they have to make decisions about their own life because they're so used to having somebody else tell them what to do. Okay. So after mortification, that's when you first enter. Then you go through importation and realize importation means bringing something in. So what are you bringing into the prison with you? Can make a big difference in how your stay goes. Think of your culture, okay? Not everybody comes from the same belief system, whether it's just the way they critically think. Are they street smart? Are they book smart? Those two do not understand each other. Okay, so if one comes in being cocky, like I'm all this and that, they're going to have a problem. Okay. So it could be religion, it could be the background. You come from money, another individual may have come from nothing. So realize that importation, there's a reason why the prison runs and puts everything in control. And it's because to stop us from bringing in all of these other things that are going to cause issues. So it's to stamp them down as quickly as possible. Um, doesn't always work, but usually people will fall in line. So, and then prisonization is what happens when you finally accept this is it. This is where I'm going to be for X amount of years. I need to learn to get along. I may not like this, what these people do. I may not like my cellmate, but I want to get through this. And so you just accept the situation. Okay. And everybody's acceptance can be different. All right. You can end up realizing that you need to be the tough guy and stand up for yourself and make sure everybody respects you, leaves you alone, backs off. You can decide to be the one that hides in the corner if that works for you. Uh, this is where people do things and they establish relationships so one protects the other. Okay. Things that they wouldn't normally do on the outside, they realize that they have to do on the inside just to survive. So, if you look at that, I'm just going to read these to you so I don't miss any. But if you go through Maslow, he is a researcher that old school. Okay, so where we say that your research needs to be 10 years or younger, anything with Maslow is still being taught today and still has validity, reliability, and credibility. So you can use that anything on Maslow if you would like to use that as part of your resources for answering questions. But they talk about the pains of imprisonment, deprivation of liberty. That is the purpose of putting somebody in prison, is to take them out of normal society and put them in a place where they cannot do the rest of us any harm. Okay? That's the actual purpose. Now think about it. This is where I like to be in class and start fights amongst us, polite ones. But then I turn around and say, you guys are just, you just want more, 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 more. Just taking away their freedom isn't enough for you. No TV, no workout room. They don't need to get to go outside. They don't need all these things. But you don't think you're punishing on punishing on what, when are we ever happy that they're being punished enough? And it's rare that we ever give in and say enough is enough. We want to continue to punish them. So realize though that if you do continue to punish that, why do we give them a weight room? Well, some people will say that just lets them build up their athletics, and then that puts weapons in their hands and they could use them to beat each other or guards. That is true. It can happen. But would you rather that happen every once in a blue moon, or would you rather have them have a place that can be monitored and secured, that they can work out their frustration, their anger, their fears on equipment instead of a person? All right. Besides, it helps maintain their health mentally and physically. So, therefore, it should hopefully keep them out of the infirmaries, which means it's going to save us taxpayer money. Okay. So you got to kind of look at all the sides, and you don't have to agree with one or the other. You just have to realize there are sides, and each side has a good point to it, but also a potential bad point to it. Okay. So besides taking away their freedom, we take away goods and services. They can't go get a haircut whenever they want. Haircuts are on a certain day, and you're getting the style that it is what it is. If it's a buzz cut, a short cut, whatever it happened, whatever the prison has agreed with the barber, that's what you're getting on that day. Okay? If you miss the day, too bad, you're waiting for the next one. And no, women, we're not getting our hair dyed, curled, fluffed, and this and that. We're getting the cut that we're going to get, what's easiest and simplest to maintain. Okay? Sorry, somebody's thinking they need to keep texting me and they're going over my notes. So, um, deprivation of heterosexual relationships. We don't have male female prisons for good reason. All right. Look up, just for the heck of it, I think it is the state of Maryland, and look up number of female correctional officers pregnant by the same inmate. Okay. That I may put that up. I may put that link up just for the heck of it. I think I will. I'll put that link up in Mathnic supplemental stuff, because one, your mind's going to go insane. You're like, how can, and how many women are pregnant by the same guy? Two, why would a correctional officer be sleeping with an inmate? Three, who's getting what from whom? The story's just nuts. Okay, it's not brand new. It's years old now, but the guy's still running his was still running his criminal empire from prison with the assistance of, I'll just leave it at, multiple COs. So he didn't have to go looking for baby mamas. They came to him, and they all knew about it. This is where I look at Pacheco and go, why? Why? And then I have to schedule a visit to the prison and talk to them and go, why? So that's me. Okay. So now, I mean, as this course goes on, you're going to get to understand where my head goes and how easy it is to get off track. Because if we could understand a lot of those whys, I'm getting too old to make those kind of changes in the in the whole legal system in general. My job is to hope to influence you, not to think like me, but to be able to think for yourself and then question the why, go beyond whatever it is that I have done or am going to do, and see if you can find a why. And then you don't have to fix the whole world of whys. Just work on one tiny one. Even if you just push it forward a little bit, that's a major accomplishment. Okay? So, um, so yes. So we're no male female prisons. So they're denied heterosexual relationships, and they have same sex, they have homosexual relationships. And I would ask you to not necessarily judge them on that, because you need to realize that the body still needs release, the brain still wants that kind of connection. Um, Sometimes it's forcible, but a lot of times it's not. It's a convenience. It's an agreed upon relationship for a million different reasons: protection, um, security, and just the genuine feeling that there's somebody there that is part of your family, or you're close, or you can trust, or whatever. Not always true, but we are not meant, we were not designed to be alone. We are social creatures. So and then realize that just because they're having homosexual in prison, which could be for 10, 15, 20 years, when they get out, they're back in their normal society. So they'll go back 99.9% of the time to their heterosexual relationship, because they are now back in society. They're getting back everything that was taken away from them. So the last two are autonomy and security. Yeah, autonomy. You don't get the ability to be yourself. Okay, like I said, girls, you don't get to cut your hair, dye it purple. Um, you get to go gray. You're not wearing a ton of makeup. If you like your nails done, that's not happening. Okay, no fashion. We're not wearing. If you like to dress like a Kardashian or a nun or what, not happening. Okay, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do to yourself that's going to be permissible to distinguish you from somebody else, which is probably why you'll see a lot of people get prison tattoos. They'll get inked, because that is a way to maintain myself, my own autonomy, to show that I am different than you. Okay, so um, I'm a wuss. That's probably, I don't even want to know how not clean that is, or how much that hurts, or whatever. But a lot of individuals will come out of prison with ink. And that's about, and they get in trouble for it. They get in trouble for it because it's not permissible, because it's letting them be an individual. And that is not what the correctional system wants. So not only do they have that, but then they also lose their sense of security. They are there, and they are just one person with X amount of guards, and there are a whole lot of inmates. Okay. I know somebody who works, or did work, the chow hall up at Florida State Prison. Okay. Death row inmates as well. But this individual said that the chow hall, about 300 inmates would go at a time. And one correctional officer would stand at the front door going into the hall, and making sure everybody went in single file line, everybody's behaving, this and that. Second guard is at the food line, making sure that everybody's behaving, they're getting only one thing, nobody's fighting over an extra cornbread, whatever. And the third officer is standing at the exit door. So if something goes down and there's a big fight, those three COs are not running into that room. Even if the one CO that's working the chow line gets in the middle of a scuffle, he's not jumping into a middle of a fight between these two. They will call in for backup because what are three COs going to do with 300 inmates? And inmate A and B may be the ones that are fighting with each other, but let's throw in a couple of COs, and who do you think everybody's going to turn on? Okay, so and then inmate A beats on inmate B. Everybody else is yelling fight, fight, or gets involved in it. Those three COs aren't coming to help right away. Where's your security? All right. So I guess that's your security probably would explain a lot of why people join those prison gangs that you read about, because there's safety in numbers and those people have promised to have one another's backs. A lot of those gangs, I think, so the state of Florida only recognizes, or the federal system only recognizes, it's in your handout, six true gangs. You know, we have way more than that, and they have splinters off, so they don't, even though a big gang might be MS-13, they might have different areas, but in prison they'll all come under MS-13, where on the outside world they may want to kill one another for whatever reason. But that's why you'll see people gravitate to that for protection, for social aspects, just a bunch of different reasons. Okay, that gives them a family, that gives them a way to be safe and entertained and feel not so alone. So when you look at that, I think your question, one of the questions, it's a multi, realize that a lot of these questions are theories, so you can have, they're opinion based. You can have a different opinion than I do on how to fix it. You just need to make sure that you find the right empirical data, the right research, and cite it properly to back yourself up. Okay, as long as you can back yourself up, then I can't say that your concept is wrong. So it just means that you think differently than I do. One of us is liberal, one of us is conservative. We are going to have different opinions. So on that note, this lobster is going to say, have a good week. Enjoy this class and look at it from all the different angles. Don't get sucked up in media, because the media has a purpose. It's supposed to inform us. I could be very jaded and say it's to sell commercials. It's to sell us on a concept or an idea. So media is not, and especially Facebook and Twitter. Oh, Twitter almost makes me insane. Um, Reddit, stay, don't get your news there. If you get news there, that's fine, but go look it up and make sure that they can back it up. Okay? So, got a question? Let me know. I'll give you plenty of places you can go to look up information. And you know what? It's always fun to call the librarians and say, hey, this is a criminal justice issue I heard. Can you look it up? Because we give them the weirdest things to look up. And sometimes we freak them out, and sometimes they like it. So, um, yeah, it's always kind of fun to call my friends over there and say, hey, could you help me find research on the death penalty and, the consequences of some that have gone wrong? That freaks them out. So, but in some class, in some lecture, that will be something that you will probably be looking into. All right, guys, I just feel like rambling, but the clouds are going away, and I guess I'm going to sneak out and do something for a little bit, and then I will come back and do some more grading. All right? Have a great week.